happy Monday. Welcome to Brain Balance Live. I am Jen. I am a fellow Brain Balance mom. And as always, I am here with Heather Wells, the amazingly talented, gifted Brain Balance director, passionate about children and families, educator. She is a certified cognitive specialist and a therapist, and also the National Autism Summit speaker. And last but not least, Heather, tell them what you've just been appointed to.
I, at Harding University, has started a program for organizational leadership and asked me to be on their advisory council.
We are so excited that Heather is just going to be able to bestow more of her knowledge on people that are working through their mental, neurological struggles. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the guilt, the shame, the blame that parents put themselves through over the help that they're trying to give to their kids. Isn't that right, Heather?
It is right. I was this mom. What am I doing wrong? What am I not doing that I should be doing? People ask me all the time, why does my child have these struggles? Is it something I'm doing? Is it my fault? I mean, they have my DNA. And this is a hugging on Parents' Day, because it is not your fault. That's the short answer, but we have a lot more to say about it. And anything I share today is not just to make you feel better. It is the truth. And I know that I think parents across the board ask this question. And when you have kids with neurodiverse struggles, whether they're social, emotional, behavioral, academic, attention, whatever it is, sometimes there's a bigger microscope on you. And you're like, well, if I were doing something else, they wouldn't be struggling so much. It's just not true. And so I really hope you'll tune in and take to heart what we talk about today.
It is so true. I actually remember a breakdown that I had a couple years ago with my husband, and I was sobbing, and I said, Corey, I just don't want to mess up our kids. And he goes, Jen, we're gonna mess up our kids. We're messed up and we're pretty great.
Yes. See, if we're going to talk about perfectionism today, and we've talked on other shows about social media too is so difficult on, look at the bento boxes and the fancy braids, and like, I'm serving PB&J, and should I feel like a bad mom? You have to we can't do it all. And what is a priority in one house doesn't necessarily need to be a priority in another house. Parenting, who knew, is not a competition sport. Boom. It's just not. And so your kids, you have parental instincts for a reason, and you know what your values are and what your focus needs to be. And that means some other things have to go, and that's okay.
Yep. I love that. Well, let's get on into it.
Yes.
Heather. How are you going to lead this conversation today? I'm so excited.
The first thing, I talked about this on a show right when the pandemic started, but it is very relevant right now, is a lot of parental anxiety is actually anticipatory grief. And what that means is, we all have a picture of what it's going to be like to be parents, and we're picturing family vacations and happiness and peace and joy and love and all of that, those good things. And then sometimes things don't turn out the way you thought. And you have kids who have special struggles. They also have strengths. And so we tend to think of grief as losing a loved one. It can be losing a job that you really like, but losing something tangible. But if you lost a dream of what you had pictured, it doesn't mean you love your child less. If you grieve that, you need to honor that. That is a type of grief, even when it's intangible. And so knowing that life looks different, and I don't feel as equipped as I thought I would because I'm facing extra challenges as a parent. It is okay to grieve that. And through that, you are going to find meaning. It is going to strengthen you and your whole family in other ways, even though there are moments when it feels like it's breaking you down. And hopefully after today, you will feel more ready to tackle that. Sometimes we're afraid to acknowledge uncomfortable emotions. And we've talked about this in kids, but it applies to teens, adults, all of us. Sometimes we're afraid that if we acknowledge sadness, grief, anxiety, it is going to take hold of us and not let go, right? It's Dr. David Kessler, who's probably the world's leading expert on grief, calls it a gang of emotions. But It is called emotion. You acknowledge it and it moves through you. Just because you acknowledge it, actually it tends to hang on less time when you give a nod to it, name it, figure out where it's coming from, honor it. All feelings have purpose. And when we model that for our kids, what a great lesson we're giving them. All of our emotions aren't going to be comfortable. We're going to face weird situations and difficult situations. And when they see you doing that, it's better for you and for your kids. So what you resist persists. That's what Carl Jung said. But we want to get rid of, we got to really think about self-talk. And this applies to everything we're going to talk about. We've talked about negative self-talk and replacing negative self-talk with neutral and believable affirmations and then moving them to more positive. But sometimes we blame ourselves for things outside of our control. I heard this a lot last March when suddenly parents had to be teachers. And I'm a bad teacher. That is a very fixed mindset. And I'm doing a bad job. This is an external circumstance that was out of parents' control, and they were blaming themselves for falling short. So we need to recognize there are external circumstances that impact that we may not be equipped for, that we're not designed to be equipped for, because we also have our own set of strengths and struggles. And if you didn't enjoy teaching your kids, that doesn't make you a bad person. We all have a wheelhouse. These are things I'm good at. I wasn't cut out to do this, and that's okay. Instead, and making sure the global versus specific, everything's awful right now. What are the things that are going well? Just a lot of perspective in that, listening to your own self-talk in all areas, but with today's topic about being a parent, I'm the worst mom. No, you're not. No, you're not. So just be monitoring that, because your kids are also going to pick up on that, and you deserve to see yourself for the amazing parent you are, whether you're a mom or a dad out there or any sort of caregiver. So we often filter out the stuff we're doing right. We hone in on I don't know how to teach my kids math. I'm a bad mom.
Oh yeah. And if the situation with the pandemic, like my job was, the entertainment industry was pretty much decimated. And so the only job I had was teaching my children. And the fact that I was not very good at that, and also my entire thing I had studied my entire life to do was gone. So here I am. And I was so hard on myself. And you're so right. I feel like we should be celebrating the victory of getting through the day.
Anybody who made it through this past year, deserves to be celebrated. I am in awe of you're heroes. Moms and dads out there, you are the heroes of this story. And the way that you took on all these many hats. Some people lost jobs. You might have a sense of personal loss, and then you still have to stick with it and be a teacher that you're not designed to be for your kids, or you're working from home. And goodness gracious, I'm losing my cool with them. I'm feeling impatient. Of course you are. You're not used to working from home and having kids doing school at home and just everything being different and stir crazy. And I want to get out. I don't want to go out. I'm scared. All of the extra things that you were juggling. If you can make it through this past year, I think you can make it through absolutely anything,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So it is okay to grieve that your family life looks different than you thought. That is called anticipatory grief. Just because it's not tangible necessarily doesn't mean it's any less real. I really want to get that across. One good thing, we always talk about blessings that come out of the hard times. One good thing that's come out of this past year is that parents are being more open about parental burnout. And that has been a shame topic that everyone was afraid to talk about, because, the joy of parenting and the smile and the love, it makes it all worth it. And if I ever don't feel that joy, what kind of person am I? I must be, you're like, yes. Yeah. Not really feeling the joy right now. I got to be honest. But because of the overwhelm, parents are filling out questionnaires and being very honest about it, which is fantastic, because that's the way we can help, right?
Yeah.
But parental burnout is not just about juggling jobs and parenting. It is the actual job of parenting itself. Y'all know about job burnout, and man, I don't have enough hours in the day to get done what I'm supposed to do. All of the things that lead in. I've got too many demands, and the way this is given to me is not, I don't have the capacity to do this. Parental burnout, same thing. I mean, the actual act, if you feel that way, it is okay. It's not okay for we've got to work through this, but it does not make you a bad person. It does not mean that you're weak. This is a real thing, the hardest job on earth, but it is intense mental and emotional, physical exhaustion, feelings of guilt and shoulda, woulda, coulda, supposed tos. And I do not have the capacity to meet the demands of being a parent. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you don't feel that you're good enough, that is really tied to parental burnout. And it's important for you to take care of this both for yourself and your children. We know that even cortisol levels have been measured in hair strands, and the cortisol levels are higher in those who report burnout. You are having a physical response to it. That's important to note, right?
Yeah.
Lots of stress markers in the body are different. You might have trouble sleeping, and then that perpetuates the cycle, right?
Yeah.
There's just a negative kind of spiral of emotion, depression, hopelessness. Understand though that this is not clinical depression, the regular depression that you hear about. It is very clinically distinct because depression is diffuse. Whatever setting I'm in, I could be sitting on a Caribbean island and I want to lay in that bed and sleep. I just don't even have the energy to go explore. Whereas if you have parental burnout, you'd be like, let's go, how refreshing. You might want to sleep for a day or two, and then you want to get out and take advantage. It is a very specific to parenting. Some parents feel guilty because, man, I feel rewarded at my job and I'm good at it. And then as a parent, I don't feel that same thing. What is wrong with me? That is parental burnout. It does not mean something's wrong with you. It means that we got to take better care of you, right?
Yes. And I'm so excited to hear your tips on that because I am the worst at self-care.
And then I'm the second worst. So and we're going to talk about exactly what that means. And it does not mean necessarily what people think it does. But not only are we seeing depression and hopelessness and stress markers that impact health in the parents, it directly impacts children. There is a wealth of research letting us know that parents teach their kids self-regulation skills, and largely by modeling and largely by being the safe harbor that's called co-regulation. You're calm, and it brings on natural calm in them, besides the actual ways we teach social emotional skills that we talk about all the time. But there is an inability, like you start emotionally detaching. So kids don't have as attached relationships. Attunement's not there. You know different cries mean hungry, wet diaper, tired. But even without language, you can listen to your child and they tell you they're fine, and you know whether they mean it or not. You have that parental radar up and that empathy going. If you are in burnout, you are not as emotionally available. It does not make you a bad person. And then kids aren't as regulated and they don't feel secure attachment. So then trust is broken down. It can really hurt the relationship. So, and it's also linked to harsher punishment, more yelling, more physical, sometimes even abuse, but much harsher parenting that, especially with neurodiverse kids, does not work as well. So let's go ahead and talk about what is self-care. If you're talking to your friends and what do you do for self-care? You might hear, I'm trying to get sleep. I'm trying to exercise. I'm trying to eat right. That is actually not considered self-care. It is self-maintenance. It is necessary, but unless going to that aerobics class is also recharging your battery emotionally, like you just absolutely love it for the sake of enjoying the activity, not just because it is healthy for you, then it's not self-care, it's self-maintenance. A lot of times the things we do for self-maintenance add to our to-do list and increase the stress. They're necessary. Like you're trying to get to that aerobics class and you get stuck in traffic and you're more stressed when you get there, right?
Yeah.
So taking care of oneself is self-maintenance. There's also anesthesia, time and a place. It's called that in the literature, in a lot of the literature, but I binge watched Netflix because I just needed to numb myself. And I watched it for 3 hours, and that might seem like self-care because you took a time out. But numbing things aren't recharging batteries. They are just letting the other stuff go. You don't necessarily finish that feeling rejuvenated, right?
Yeah.
Self-care is what recharges your spirit, recharges your battery. We got to recharge a cell phone. We got to recharge the battery. Which banks of yours are not full? And that you can even talk to kids about that and talk about banks, the hug bank, the quality time bank. You have these banks too. And that's a very concrete way to help kids start understanding and you really being able to pinpoint what part of your bank needs to be regenerated.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So what do you do that is just intensely fun? It's you can do arts and crafts with your kids, and if you enjoy it, but it's also you still have your mom hat on or your dad hat on. It's not necessarily self-care. It's very important, but it is not self-care necessarily.
Can I tell you something fun that I discovered about myself the other day?
Of course.
So I think I hit golf balls maybe when I was a kid with my dad. That's like the only time I ever like actually whacked a golf ball, right? Well, the other Valentine's Day, my mother-in-law sent my husband and I to Top Golf to just hit some golf balls for Valentine's Day. And I remembered that I love hitting golf balls.
Wow.
I think this might be my new self-care thing to do is to take myself to hit golf balls.
That makes so much sense. You know, we forget the things we enjoy a lot of times because we feel guilty. But the best way that we can all encourage ourselves to engage in self-care is to remember that self-care is childcare. If you are burned out, you are not as emotionally available for your kids, even if you think you are. You're not as patient. You're not as in tune with them. And that hurts the kids. You deserve it, period, end of story. But I know that we have parents listening who still feel guilty. Self-care improves childcare. It absolutely does. It improves you as a friend, as a spouse, as a worker out in the workforce if you have another job besides parenting. Okay? So you are serving your children by doing something that is just for you, whether it is a cause, whether it is a sport, going to a concert, having a night out with the girls, going to eat Tex-Mex or something. It is crucial for the welfare of your family. Crucial. And it's so good to divide and conquer if you have other people in your life, whether it is grandparents or a spouse or aunt, uncle, whoever's around that helps you out. What are things that are energy begetting to you, even within the realm of parenting? Because a lot of times, I think Corey doesn't mind washing the plastic straws and you hate it. Isn't that right?
It's the reverse. I will wash the plastic straws.
Okay.
You will not.
That makes so much more sense. I said it backwards.
No, but I'm impressed that you remember that.
Yes, I pay attention, girl.
Yes, girl.
And so, you don't mind doing it at all. It drives him nuts. So there are things on this to-do list as a family that I don't mind doing it. It doesn't bother me a bit. And it's just that one of those things you just dread.
Yeah.
Redivide who does what, and that can make a big difference too. And that shows such compassion for one another, and you feel supported in that way. But the other thing that we really need to talk about is because we do live in social media age, and if I saw your TikTok videos and Izzy, the videos that Izzy does with both you and Corey, and I think she does some on her own, and somebody just saw that slice of life in your family, they might be like, I can't keep up. Look how happy and joyful and playful. What a fun family. And it's just smiles and giggles all the time. We know that's not true. You're not even trying to portray that. You get on here and talk about real struggles. But we're seeing snapshots of other people's lives. Somebody who doesn't tune into our show and know about other struggles you're facing. We don't know what it's like behind closed doors. And some people maybe are trying to project a certain image. The Warren family is not doing that. They're very real. Yeah. There's the fun time, but you might just happen to see a slice of it and make assumptions, and then I don't measure up. Yeah. We have all of these stereotypes that get created, and which one of these boxes do I fit into? One of the best ways to not go into burnout is to connect with your circle, to connect with those who are facing similar challenges, even though everyone's journey is different. But there can be a lot of judgment going on. So when the very source of support it doesn't think you're doing something well enough, then you might hold it in. But we know that talking it out is very helpful. You need to have a release for that that's safe for you. Serve and return relationships do not just apply to young children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But because of that, we got to get out of perfect parenting. I mean, everybody's like, am I doing every single thing I could possibly do for my kids? No, because that's not even possible. For you to literally do every single possible thing you can do for your children, that would mean you can do nothing else in life ever. Right?
Yeah. I actually had somebody ask me a question about parenting a baby the other day. And they said, do you think that what I'm doing is messing them up? Because they're like, you have 3 kids. You might know the answer to this. And I said, no, I think there's only what you do. Like, you're doing what you're doing. You're evaluating if it's working, and you might change it, but there's no way to predict, like, if you had done it a different way, if it would have gone a different way. There's really no way to know that it would have been better if you had chosen the other option.
Yes. The if-then statements, if you think about those have 2 sides. If only I had stayed on Johnny more about his schoolwork, maybe he would have passed this year. If only I hadn't been on him so much, maybe he wouldn't have resented it and would have done his work. Like, anything you say like that, there's an opposite side of the coin. We're going to grow herbs in our garden and everything's going to be fresh. Well, guess what? That's fantastic. That also means you have less time to spend on the homework because you're sitting here cooking these nutrition. Like, there's a trade-off for anything you do.
Yep.
And when we try to engage in perfect parenting, we did a whole perfectionism show. Anybody struggles with that, I highly recommend watching that show. We've had so much positive feedback on that, like big light bulb aha moments for people that they said have changed their lives. But it applies to parenting too. Our kids don't need to be perfect. We're not perfect. And when we try to be perfect parents, we convey that our performance is what matters, not meeting needs. And that is not what we're trying to convey. We need to convey unconditional love. We need to convey availability, support, responsiveness. And one of the things that it's called good enough parenting. There's so much research on this, a lot of research on this, is good enough parents. And that doesn't mean we're just trying to skate beyond the minimum. It means we know that we're not going to be perfect and we're not even going to try. There's got to be a balance on this stuff. We don't take credit or blame for our kids' actions. It is our responsibility to raise them up right. Kids who are neurodiverse often do things that appear to be moral issues that aren't. We've talked about that so many times.
Oh, yeah, that is so representative of my everyday, Heather.
Yes. What in the world? I didn't raise my child to be a liar. I didn't raise my child to hit people. There are neurodiverse things going on. That is not reflective on you. And you're not going to take credit for I'm the reason you got that trophy, or the blame when things don't go right. The good enough parent recognizes that. So these are some mantras to think about, to customize to you and how they fit your life, and just realizing you can't do everything. I think I've already said that one. Celebrating who your child is, not who we dream for them to be. And children are not just their labels. They are not just their struggles. What are their strengths? Spend one-on-one time with them. Get to know more about their interests. Try to understand them. Listen intently and deeply. We want to talk with our children, not at them. Have one-on-one time. Smiling at mistakes. When you make mistakes, when they make mistakes. Growth mindset. What can you learn from this? How liberating for the entire family. How much more likely your kids are to come to you when they don't fear repercussions of making a mistake when they're really trying. If they learn from it, it is success in a different form, right? Respecting individuality. Focusing on making things better instead of who's to blame. Not blaming the other spouse, grandma, the child. Just what can we do to make it better? Having a solution-oriented mentality helps everyone. Blame does nothing except increase anxiety, depression, performance-related issues like I have to perform or else, instead of I am my heart and soul, not what I do. Just trusting kids to figure it out. We do not want to step in and rescue them from everything. How much time does this free up to? We talk about creating independent problem solvers. You are there for them, supporting them on the level they need, but stepping back, letting them fail sometimes, because that's when the greatest growth happens. You're showing that you believe in them. They're having to use problem solving, analyzing, realizing there's more than one way around an obstacle. That is going to help them in the long run, big time. We don't want to shelter our kids too much. I love this one. Looking for the best explanation for behavior, not making excuses, but could there be another reason why my child refused to do his homework other than he's just being obstinate? Could it be that he's not having a voice in other areas of his life, and this is where he's choosing to do how he's choosing to do it? And so we need to find other ways for him to have a voice.
Wait, are you telling me that there could be reasons that seem totally unrelated to it?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And when you log these things, I always talk about logging these and looking for patterns. The patterns emerge so many times. The behavior is not about the behavior. Just like a spouse fight is often not about the thing you're fighting about. Sometimes they don't even mind doing this math worksheet, but I'm putting my foot down because I wasn't heard on this other thing. And it was probably unintentional. There are so many reasons that we know that behavior is communication. What is the best scenario of why they may have done this? If that's not what it was, then we don't pretend that it was. But so many times, if we give kids the benefit of the doubt, we're going to find out what underlies that behavior. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. Instead of jumping to the worst case scenario and they're just trying to be different, we don't want to assign character and personality labels that are negative because those will stick. Those will stick. Celebrating, we talked about celebrating, supporting their interests. Loving, patient, attuned. That is what kids need from us. Period. End of story. They do not need us to be perfect. They do not need to have 6-course meals, even if the next door neighbor does it. They don't have to have the cutest French braid. They need our love, unconditional. We celebrate who they are. We support them in their growth toward autonomy and independence. We got to be careful on empathy. We always want to be empathetic, but there's also a strong link between if we have such strong empathy for our kids, there's a higher chance of burnout because you were so invested in them. But what counterbalances that is having the same for yourself.
Yeah, I have to be really careful with that one. I am such an empath that I have to set my boundaries really clearly. Otherwise, it just drains all the energy out of me.
Yes. I mean, that's why there's even in the helping professions, therapists, nurses, a lot of those types of fields have higher burnout because of that empath situation going on and being able to measure that. But when you have intrapersonal empathy also, you recognize those signs and start doing self-care, and that balances out the strong empathy you have for others. But if it's more about empathy for others and then we don't attune to ourselves, that's when burnout happens. So
That's a hard one to learn. That's really hard.
It is. It is. So there is a slide that Bess is going to pull up, and we are trying to be such awesome parents. We still want to do the best we can, but it's not going to be perfect. But there is a book called Always Kiss Me Goodnight, where he had this brilliant idea of asking 1,000 kids, if I could tell my parents how to raise me, I'd tell them from the mouths of babes. I just had to share some of these. When I'm down, raise me up. Believe that I could achieve my goals. Sit down and have a conversation with me. Say I love you once in a while, not just when I'm leaving for school. Sometimes, can you play with me instead of saying no? If you give them a chance, you can find my radio stations are as good as yours. Let me make a mess when I'm doing art. I like piano, but I'd like to stop. When you're a kid, you should have some fun. Overscheduled CEO calendars of kids sometimes. If you ever have a problem, listen to me. Maybe I can help. Kids feel so valued when you have, of course, it depends on the problem. You're going to have a lot of discretion here. When we talk about growing independent problem solvers, it is not just when they're facing a problem. Anything that you can bring them into, you are growing their problem solving abilities and making them feel valuable to you because they are. Let me show you all of my creations. This is so fantastic because part of a growth mindset is we talk about instead of praising the grade, the MVP status, praising the process, the creativity, objective observation about how interesting that you chose to write about this topic. Tell me about your creation. You are showing interest in them without them feeling judged based on how they did on it. Read to me, even though I can read. Eat dinner with me. Supper time as a family is a lost art. All I need, you really already gave me. And this is love, caring, and a roof over my head and a good family to come home to after school. Look at this. It is about love, support, conversation, quality time together. They are not looking for us to be perfect. So why do we need to put this pressure on ourselves? This is really representative of what 1,000 kids said from a very representative sample of kids in that kind of tween to teen range. And
I love these. They're so beautiful and so simple. And we get so busy with the day-to-day that sometimes we don't take the time to do the simple things, you know?
Yes. There's nothing wrong with any of these things I said. I mean, if somebody's good at braiding hair and that's their thing, maybe they don't cook as well as you do. It's not a competition. But what it boils down to is kids need to know we are here for you. We support you. We love you unconditionally, who you are and who you are growing into. I'm not trying to form you into what I want you to be. I'm not living vicariously through you, right? It is about conversation, one-on-one time. And all parents who love their children are doing these things. And so I'm hoping that this can take a load off. Struggles are not your fault. Every single child, tween, teen, and adult, we're going to all face struggles. It's not about blame. It's about solution-oriented and teamwork and love and understanding.
I love this. This is like all such good advice, like you said, for all ages. And I think that we all could definitely take something from today's show for ourselves and for our kids.
Yes. This was just all about, I every single week I have multiple meetings with these wonderful, wonderful parents who are wondering, what am I not doing that I should be doing? What didn't I do that I should have that's caused this? You are not to blame, period. Love your child, give them the support they need, and get rid of the blame and just be there for your kids. Yes, get them the support they need. But aside from that, their actual needs for us are simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was listening to a podcast years ago where they said, I'm reading this parenting book and I want to know how much I have the ability to change as a parent. Like how much of what I do as a parent is already kind of like ingrained in me and I really can't change it. And these podcasters were saying, I don't know how much you can change, but the fact that you're reading the parenting book in the first place is actually like you're trying. So like right. You're a great parent because you're trying.
That's right. That's right. Maya Angelou has a great quote about do the best you can, not perfect. And then when you know more, do better. That's all any of us can do. Right. Yeah. All right. That really kind of rounds it out for today.
Oh my gosh, it was such a great topic, Heather. Thank you so much, as always, for all of your beautiful advice. As you guys can see, if you are watching this on the replay, please, please, please drop your questions in the comments. Ask Heather if you see her at one of her brain balance centers. You can see them all listed here with phone numbers. So screenshot this. Make sure that you're following her at The Hidden Churn. She does all kinds of just useful information constantly in her feed. So make sure you're following. And then are you going to have another show this week, Heather?
Yes, since this is Autism Acceptance Month, Dr. Brian and I on Thursdays at 3:30 are talking about different topics related to autism. And this Thursday, we're talking a lot about cultivating communication.
Beautiful. Well, I think we can all learn something from that topic for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, we will be back next week. Same time, same place. I'll see you then, Heather.
All right. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everybody.